After 16 years of silence, the legendary mountain man is finally ready to expose the untold secrets behind his rugged persona. His unbreakable, solitary existence has fueled endless speculation. What hidden truths lie behind those weathered eyes? Now, he steps forward in a candid confession that promises to turn everything you thought you knew on its head. What has he been keeping secret all these years? What moments of vulnerability did he hide behind his tough exterior? Why did he choose to remain silent for over a decade and a half? Prepare to journey deep into the heart of the wilderness and into the soul of a man whose life has been as untamed as the wild itself. To fully comprehend the importance of today, we need to retrace our steps to its starting point. For many years, Eustace Conway has been an expert in the fields of wilderness survival and off-grid living. His untamed way of life and unreserved love of the natural world have made him almost legendary among outdoor enthusiasts. Conway is referred to as the modern mountain man, and his life has been as unvarnished and wild as the wilderness in which he lives. He is well known in adventure and environmental circles for his survival skills, strong bond with nature, and willingness to question contemporary society. Eustace Conway was born in 1940 in the crowded rolling hills of rural Virginia, and his first memories were of the outdoors rather than of playgrounds or the comforts of the suburbs. Conway was raised in a household where the cycles of nature governed day-to-day existence. As a child, he was taught the language of the forest, which included the timeless cycle of the seasons, the whisper of the wind through old pines, and the silent communication of the rustling underbrush. He inherited a deep respect for nature and a resolve to coexist with it from his mother, a kind spirit who taught him to read the signs of the land, and his father, a tough woodsman with a fierce independence. Young Eustace was drawn to the wild from the time he could walk. He learned to hunt, forage, and navigate by the stars, while exploring the woods behind his family's cabin, while other kids played with toys. During his early years, he learned survival skills that would eventually define his entire life. He was already traveling far from home by the time he was a teenager, seeking solitude in the vast, unexplored Appalachian wilderness. Conway found his true calling during these early years, to live free from the restrictions of contemporary society. As the world started to modernize at a never-before-seen rate in the 1960s, Eustace Conway made a decision that went against the grain. Conway looked for deeper truths in the wild. While other people went on to get college degrees and work in corporations, he accepted the lifestyle of a mountain man, which included epic treks through wild forests, long winters spent in remote cabins, and a close relationship with the land. His exploits quickly started to captivate the public's interest. When Conway started imparting his survival knowledge through a number of books and public talks in the early 1970s, it was his big break. His straightforward philosophy of living off the grid struck a chord with a generation that had grown weary of the luxuries of contemporary life. Conway depicted a world where people could find true freedom in the embrace of nature through his unvarnished, unadulterated storytelling. This world stood in sharp contrast to the fast-paced digital lifestyle that was quickly taking shape in the cities. As a living example of the tough spirit, he attracted hordes of admirers with his public appearances and books, which flew off the shelves. But fame also brought scrutiny. Critics started to wonder if the man who was hailed as the mountain man was really as real as his admirers thought. There were rumors that his descriptions of wilderness life were inconsistent. Skeptics contended that his portrayal of a straightforward, unadorned lifestyle was inconsistent with his later years, during which he was known to indulge in some of the luxuries available in contemporary society. His survival abilities, which were once legendary, were allegedly exaggerated to support his persona. Others drew attention to his occasionally brazen and unvarnished criticism of society, which verged on contempt for the very advancements and technology that many believed were the way of the future. These conflicts only got louder during the 1980s and 1990s. The real nature of Conway's lifestyle was called into question by documentaries, magazine profiles, and contentious discussions in outdoor forums. Did he simply hold on to an idealized past, a relic of a bygone era? Or was he a rebel with a cause, a man who had made a conscious decision to oppose the ways that modernity was invading nature? Even as the criticism mounted, Conway refused to bow down. His supporters fiercely defended him, claiming that in a world growing more and more disconnected, his message of independence and kinship with nature was more important than ever. But beneath the public image was a more complex and intensely private tale, one replete with internal strife, self-sacrificing acts, and lasting regrets. Even the toughest of us are susceptible to uncertainty and vulnerability, despite his public persona as a lonesome, uncompromising individual. Conway struggled with the consequences of his decisions in his private time, away from the scrutiny of the press and the admiration of his followers. The mountain's isolation, which was once a source of strength, occasionally turned into a prison. Feelings of loneliness and regret may occasionally be intensified by the wilderness's unending silence. In moments rarely revealed to the public, Conway acknowledged that he had made poor choices that had severely damaged his relationships with others and were motivated by youthful pride. He remembered spending nights by himself in a grumbling cabin, gazing into a dying fire, and wondering if the route he had taken was worth the cost. He suffered a severe personal loss during one of the most important periods of his private life. After years of exclusion, Conway lost a close friend and fellow wilderness enthusiast in the late 1980s. The man had been more like a brother to Conway. In a way that no amount of outdoor adventure ever could, the tragedy rocked him to his core and made him face the frailty of life. Following that loss, Conway started to face his own mortality and the fact that grief could leave scars on even the most resilient life. As he approaches his later years, Eustace Conway is now prepared to reveal a long-kept secret about his life that he feels is crucial to comprehending the true man behind the legend. Conway finally talked about the vulnerabilities and internal conflicts that have defined him throughout his life in a rare, in-depth interview with a major outdoor magazine. It took place in a small cabin in the foothills of the Appalachians, surrounded by tall trees and the quiet sound of a nearby stream. In sharp contrast to the exuberant stories of adventure and survival that had long characterized his public persona, the atmosphere was one of introspection. "Eustace, what is the one truth you've never shared with your fans?" was the question that had troubled both his critics and his supporters. Conway stopped. As he stared straight into the camera, his wrinkled face, marked by years of experience and wisdom, softened. In a voice that echoed decades of experience, he acknowledged, "There are things I've done, choices I've made, that I'm not proud of. I've been defending my behavior to myself for years, telling myself that the sacrifices were required. However, I've made mistakes, and it's time for me to own up to them." Both those who had long admired him as the unstoppable mountain man and those who had questioned the accuracy of his hardy way of life were shocked by this candid admission. Few people had ever seen the side of Conway that he displayed in that moment. It was one of regret, reflection, and a profound awareness of the price of living so far away from the conveniences of society. One must go back to the early years of Eustace Conway's rise to fame in order to fully appreciate his revelation. Conway set out on a solo expedition into the heart of America's wilderness in the 1960s, while the rest of the world was welcoming the promises of modernity. In addition to being a physical journey, his quest for meaning in a world that appeared to be becoming more and more cut off from nature was also spiritual and philosophical. Conway developed his survival skills to almost legendary proportions while navigating the vast reaches of the Appalachian and Rocky Mountains. His adventures, from hunting in the dense forests to surviving the coldest winters in remote cabins, became representative of a way of life that many could only imagine. Through his writings, talks, and eventually TV appearances, he established a reputation that praised self-reliance, fortitude, and a nearly sacred connection to the land. His message was straightforward, but impactful. In order to truly experience freedom, one must get back in touch with nature, give up the comforts of modern life, and learn to live by the unadulterated, unrefined rules of the wild. Conway's impact grew over the years, reaching far beyond the woods. He rose to prominence as a cultural icon and a representation of opposition against the homogenizing influences of contemporary culture. His unwavering spirit and the promise of a life lived in harmony with nature drew followers from environmental activists to extreme survivalists. But as his legend spread, so did the inquiries concerning the myth's creator. Critics started to contend that Conway's life was much more complex than the straightforward account of his tenacious individualism, which he had long promoted. Conway's most recent admission represents a sea change, a time when the mountain man lets himself be perceived as completely human, with all the weaknesses and contradictions that go along with it. He talked about the loneliness that occasionally accompanied his years of seclusion, the internal conflicts that raged in the wilderness's silence, and the times when the pressure of his own expectations became nearly too much to bear. "You learn a lot from living in the wild," he said. "However, it also makes you face your own shortcomings. Nature doesn't give a damn about your past or reputation. It reduces you to your most basic self." This open admission struck a deep chord with many of the people who have followed Conway's journey. It casts the mountain man as a multifaceted person who has endured the emotional and physical turbulence of a life on the edge, challenging the idealized portrayal of him as an unwavering, stoic figure. His openness has sparked a larger discussion about what self-reliance really means. It is about facing one's inner demons and finding the strength to grow from them, not just about surviving in the wilderness. The impact of Eustace Conway goes well beyond his personal exploits. His teachings have encouraged countless people to question the unrelenting advance of modernity, embrace the challenges of self-sufficiency, and re-establish a connection with nature. His public appearances continue to be a potent reminder of the timeless appeal of a more straightforward, genuine way of life. And his books continue to be a resource for anyone looking to blaze their own trail in the wilderness. Eustace Conway's discoveries coincide with a period of deep reflection in this new era, as society struggles with the existential and environmental issues of the modern era. A new conversation about what it means to live authentically has been sparked by his readiness to own up to his mistakes and embrace vulnerability. Many people view his journey as a call to reflect on our own lives and find a balance between the need for connection and the unrelenting pursuit of independence, rather than merely a tale of survival.